Hello, everyone. This is Ed Breniger, and welcome to the Eddy Network podcast. My guest today is Aksinya, a polymath expert in Vienna, Austria, one of my favorite places. Welcome. I'm so glad to have you here. I'm really looking forward to our conversation because you have there's so many touch points for things that I'm interested in, and it's really great to have you here.
Thank you, Ed. It's an honor. I'm very happy to share whatever I can with you and your respected audience.
Thank you. So tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do, and this idea of what it means for someone to be a polymath and your perspective on this. I know there are other people that I've had on the podcast who have talked about this, but I'd like to know your perspective because it matters.
Thanks. I can introduce myself best, I think, in that way. I was recently reflecting on what makes me as a person, and just realized there are two main passions in my life, which explain everything. These are, I love knowledge. I absolutely love knowledge. Ontology, epistemology, everything. And I love people. These two things. So most part of my professional life, I was more concentrated on people. I was in HR and recruitment and headhunting. So people were my main focus. But knowledge as such is like my passion since childhood, reading, writing. And uh, in the recent years, after I got my daughter, I realized that I really have to go more into education because I also have I have a degree, master's in linguistics and education, but I never used it somehow because of HR, so the focus was different. But recently I realized I really have to contribute somehow to the innovation in education. And I started my research on innovative methodologies because I have this strong inclination, like an outlier, or so I'm a typical outlier, as you are also, you told about yourself. So I was looking for some progressive methodologies, some new things, and then probably because of my strong interest in history, I decided to do a research in the history of education. So I realized that I can't because what I saw, lots of people try to innovate in education, but what happens? They don't innovate. They actually, what they do, they just reinvent the old methods which already existed hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago, but they don't know it because this is the human nature that you kind of invent with the wheel again and again. So this is what happened, and I said, no, I don't want that. I want first understand what was there actually. So I was researching. I was so fascinated of what I found. I mean, I discovered such a huge, huge treasury of knowledge. What our ancestors in all civilizations, all ages, they have done already. So much of innovative pedagogies. And it was there, and it's still there. I mean, so you can find the information, but it's not popular. So I thought, okay, I really have to write a book on it. So I started writing a book on, I called it I invented kind of this name. It existed, but not in that respect, world pedagogy. So not something like that, Weltpädagogik. I actually started writing it in German. And then I realized that I like knowledge of history. I mean, world history, like proper knowledge of history. So I stopped writing. I wrote like it's half of the book, and then I realized I can't continue because I just missed the basics. I just don't understand why this particular innovation happened because I missed the context, the historical context of the epoch and how is it connected. So all this kind of global vision I had none. So I decided that, okay, I stopped writing and dive into history. it took me like 5 years, I think. I did my history studies on my own, like just, I mean, history is really valuable. There are books, there are podcasts, there are wonderful lectures of best universities. Everything is available. Also in Vienna University, you can attend to wonderful public lectures. Everything is there. So it took me a long time. I also visited lots of places, sites, museums. So luckily here in Vienna, we have also wonderful historical sites and museums, and also in Italy and all around neighbor countries. So I did my history studies quite quite well, and there it happened. There, by analyzing um, the history and history of learning as such, history of knowledge as such, I realized that every epoch, every civilization had their polymaths. And these polymaths, they were the people who actually shaped our history. And I was so mind blown by it. I said, but why nobody speaks about it? Because it's like, this is, it's a huge topic because we call these people geniuses. But when we analyze why are they actually genius, then you learn that all of these truly significant personalities, especially in the field of knowledge, and the ones who formed the world of ideas, but also in politics and art. By the way, many monarchs were really great polymaths, amazing polymaths. So it's lots of people who shaped history. They were polymathic, and that was like my personal discovery for myself. I said, "Oh, good," but nobody speaks about it. And that was exactly 2018 when the first book on polymathy by um, Vakas Ahmed came, the book The Polymath. Then it helped me also a lot to kind of bring it all together. And then after 2 years, the book by Peter Berg, the renowned professor, where he for same name, the Polymath, and he focused more on the Western polymath. He openly said, "I'm not like specializing in Eastern or any other cultures. I just will show you 500 best Western polymaths in history in the 500 years." So he really took one very short period of history, and then I said, "Okay, that's great, but I want to go further." So what I did, and here is the book, quite thick also, it's 460 pages or something. I try to cover everything. So I did, it's quite a big part is historical. So I covered all civilizations, like also Indian, Chinese, I don't know, Egyptian, whatever was there, throughout the history. For instance, India had its Renaissance time in the beginning of the 20th century. It's beautiful and it delivered so many poems. So other, lots of wonderful renaissances all over the world happened, actually before the European Renaissance. And so I tried to cover all that. So it's actually history of polymathy, like world history of polymathy is there. Then I took a closer look at the kind of more scientific part of it. I considered the psychological, neurobiology, and a little bit genetics, whatever was available on the information. And then the world of work, because I'm specializing in the world of work anyway, and the world of education. So, and the last part of the book are 12 interviews with modern polymaths, people like you and me who are not like historical great figures and normal human beings who have clearly several domains where they excel, where they're really brilliant and amazing, and they live a normal human life. They're not prominent, not somehow, known even, but they enjoy their polymathy. So this is the book, and I'm not doing, I'm not advertising it. I'm just saying that this was my path. That I went through history. I discovered that polymathy is not well researched, it's underrepresented, and I decided to go deeper into that and to show it to the world, this beauty, because this is such a beauty. I mean, I was so happy to discover it, and I was absolutely, like in seventh heaven about all this topic, and you know, advocating for it all the time. So still, I'm doing that a lot on LinkedIn. Also, I'm posting almost daily about polymathic perspectives and examples and whatever comes this way. So I'm a clear polymathy advocate. Yes, and I myself, of course, also polymathic. That's clear. Not that huge, but still, I have some, yeah, aspects.
Let me ask you this question, because it's a question that I've had um, since I was told that I'm a polymath. I appreciate that. I'm grateful for the designation. I'm not sure that that's accurate, but that's another. I think that's probably an accurate thing. A lot of polymaths don't think themselves in that term, but that's not my point. That's not where I want to go. What I'm interested in is that does the does does when the world is in a dynamic transition, like we have been in the last 150 years, 200 years, 300 years, 400 years, we've been in a dynamic transition in the world. Does that create an environment for polymaths to emerge into into the culture where they are acknowledged as being there, because they're bringing ideas and they're bringing solutions and bringing ways of understanding what's going on that would not be typically understood if they were not getting some recognition. Do you think? My question is: does living in a time of great change cause polymaths to surface out and become more noticeable
You mean today?
today?
Yes, yes. I call it the comeback of polymath. It's the renaissance of polymathy is over there. I mean, not around the corner. It's actually here,
Yes, that's what
and
I'm
you can
saying.
experience. Yeah, it's here. It's just a comeback because if as we starting from hunter-gatherers, it's the polymathic mindset, the explorer, the person who is mastering several domains because it's the course of life, which is life. Like, hunter-gatherers, they had to master several domains because that was their
Right.
life. And so then, of course, for the time of starting with agricultural Neolithic revolution, we kind of paused a little bit. So you can say, okay, last 10,000 years, it was a little bit a setback, but also not completely. So most of the population, because of the agrarian culture, people they started specializing, but only, yeah, it's the majority. But the minority, which could educate themselves, they became all polymaths. So basically, like the learning itself was polymathic. It continued to be polymathic, but the not trade, okay, but craft crafts and agriculture, they were, of course, specialized, more specialized. So now we're experiencing a comeback because it's you can't survive. This is not my just prediction. It's obvious to everyone. The level of complexity is increasing daily. And if you are not coping with that, if you don't understand how things are connected, if you do not have at least basic knowledge in like I mean, good general knowledge, of course. And then on top of that, if you could master several domains, ideally in disparate fields, it's ideal. Yeah. If you could cover like technology, arts, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know, languages, science, whatever you can cover, please. And this is also, I mean, one of my major topics were because I also, of course, trying to understand, work, and do something with artificial intelligence, that I understand that only people who are like we will be forced by the AI to become better humans. This is the only way that we can survive. Better humans in all ways, like human beings, like our human qualities, and also our intellect. If we will not, we will lose. So it means actually AI pushes on us really to our borders of excellence.
Mm-hmm.
And here it's for everyone, but even more for leaders, of course. But in general, I believe that, and here is the door for polymathy to come in, because this is the way. Because just think of that in the history of learning, polymaths are the best learners. They are the people who, having same lifetime as other people, they master several domains instead of one. How are they doing that?
Yeah.
How are they learning? So it means that we can learn from them, and the whole education should really refocus. And this is one of my other passions that I try to bring this philosophy somehow to education, schooling or higher education, whatever these ideas that one can't, I mean, you can't continue the same way if you will not develop this mindset. So it's first the mindset that we understand that polymath is a need. It's not like a luxury. It's a need of the time. Of course, there are some people who are not polymaths and who will never become one and who are not interested. They are called monomaths. There are such people, and it's fine. I mean, absolutely fine. But there are lots of people who are so-called latent polymaths who have this potential, but they are forced to not to leave it. So the society is not allowing them to become polymaths because of the restrictions. Yeah. So this group is huge, and we can address it. So this is my major concern.
Well, I think probably this is the way I understand what we're dealing with. That the education system in the West, I'm separating the West from the East, over the last 200 years or so, or 150 years, has sought to be a specialist education focused on preparing people to work in industries. And therefore, their minds have been starved for knowledge. They've been starved for breadth of information. And I mean, I'm one of those. And I was an okay student. I was an okay student. The fact I got to go to a fine university surprises me because I was such a, I don't, what did they see in me? I don't know what they saw in me. And when I got there, I didn't know, how am I going to do this? This is also narrow, you know, how am I going to
Mhm.
study history? And when I'm interested in history and science and history and religion and art and, you know, all these different things, how do I encompass all these different areas of interest into this one little narrow major in my university experience? And and so I don't fit in that. But what I have found is that if you stay curious and you stay open to learning, if you commit yourself to reading, commit yourself to talking to people, inquiring about who they are instead of telling them who you are, inquire who are you and what, you know, like what I do with the podcast. You begin to learn things, and your breadth of understanding grows. And I see that taking place in a broader spectrum than it was, say, 25 years ago.
Right, because also everything is available. I mean, it's quite easy to
Everything
reach
is.
out to people to get the information, right? And also people, yeah. I mean, we can talk like that. Imagine.
I just bought. I'm in a new house. Just moved in last week, and
Oh.
upstairs I have a room that will be my library, and it will be
Mm.
for nothing more than all my books. Because what I do is I hear something, and I say, well, I've never heard of this before. What is this?
Yeah.
This idea? And And so I Google it. I Google it. Oh, that's interesting. Or I go to Wikipedia. Oh, that's interesting. And then I go looking for people who have YouTube channels on this, and then ultimately I'll end up buying 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 books on the topic. Not
Yes,
because I want to have all this knowledge. What I want is to know enough so that I can talk to people who are knowledgeable in these fields, like you. I mean, I'm grateful for the opportunity to talk with you because you're extraordinarily knowledgeable about this, and therefore I get to learn, but also I get to respect what you've learned by being able to ask you the kinds of questions which allow you to really show us what we need to know. So my
right.
next question for you is, how does one, well, is polymathy something that you're born with, or is it something that you acquire by effort and discipline and commitment?
I mean, it's it's a hard question.
Good,
Uh,
good. I'm glad.
because actually,
I like to ask hard questions.
okay, right. I mean, honestly, really, to be brutally honest, you're born with that.
Okay.
So as I say, like I for myself, I identified these 3 types, like born polymaths. It's exactly how I write it also in my book. I said there are born polymaths, there are latent polymaths, and there are monomaths. So it's also, of course, very, very like there could be lots of things in between, but the general stuff. And the difference is very simple. The polymaths, they have absolute incredible hunger for knowledge. They never stop. They are, for them, lifelong learning is not a philosophy, it's just a way of being. You just can't not learn.
Yeah.
You love learning, you're passionate about learning. And this is unfortunately not so with people who are not polymathic, or at least not, okay, like monomaths, they also like to learn about their own discipline. Like, yes, it's true that they can go quite deep. Um, but uh, the rest is not interesting for them. But there are people who are just not learning anything, like they're not interested what to do. And this is the main thing, because and this I don't think this can be trained. A trick, there is a trick. There is a trick, and actually I wrote about it also in my book, because I was mm, searching for the answer what to do, how to inspire people. There is a trick. There are people who are inspired, most of people are inspired actually by, there is a term for that, what's it called? By the social environment, if they're in a group of people who are already doing that. So they're inspired collectively. They're not inspired on their own, they don't have the inner drive. But if they're in a group of people who are already doing something and are passionate about it, then they get ignited, ignited,
Ignited. Yes. Mm-hmm.
ignited, right? So that's how it may work, but it will not work like if you have one polymathic per child and put it in a class, the class will not become ignited. It never happens. Just the vice. Normally, this person will be an outsider. But if you have a group of more or less curious kids, and then you put like 10 curious kids and you add like 3 to add, then they may develop into polymathic kids, because they most probably have the inclination. But on their own, this I see this huge difference, because I mean I must admit, in my environment too, although I have amazing people, but many people say that they have never seen anybody like me being so passionate about learning. I hear it from many, many people that it's unusual to them. I mean, we're not talking about people in academia, just people in different mundane professions, let's put it like that. For them, when they see me, they say, wow, how can it be that you're all the time curious, that you're all the time learning something new? why? They're so surprised because for them it's not interesting. So that that's a sign for
Well,
me that it's not that common.
the challenge for us is not just the learning. The challenge is actually to help others understand why the learning matters. And
Yeah, right.
you can't do that in a kind of analytical way. We have to really show why there's a concrete value to learning. And it's not just learning in a random sense. It's learning and making these connections between all these different fields and disciplines. Is that to a person who is not a polymath, when you explain in those terms, they begin to see that there's something more in the world uh, than what they had thought. And
Yes, yes. That's is the inspiring part of it, and that's why I believe we have to do this work. Also, like I started in my newsletter on LinkedIn, I started featuring more like what I call modern polymaths, where I show, look, these people are here, they're among us, and people then write to me in personal messages that they find it so inspiring when they see normal everyday people being polymaths, and that's not like in a Renaissance time, but today. So we shall keep inspiring others. That's it.
so, is your book available everywhere? Or
On Amazon.
it's
Yeah, it's available. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, it's also in print. Luckily, actually, since last week, it's available in print. Before it was only on Kindle, so now it's available. Yeah.
Well, good, because I definitely want to read it because you're saying things that intrigue me. Um, so, and it strikes me that the challenge the challenge in a society is not how it embraces the polymath, but rather how does it educate children so that the polymaths may learn that they are
Yeah, yeah,
and then
that's it.
support them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I homeschooled my daughter for 3 years, and I tried to develop the methodology for mm, breeding a polymath. So it's also in the book, all the way how I went through it, my steps, and what I did with her. It's all there also, so you can see what can be done in that way if you want to um, implement it in at least in private education. I mean, in home education, schooling it's a huge problem. Schooling is a really problem. That's why I I don't see how it can be easily done in schooling, but it can be done, of course, and it will be done. I'm sure it will be done. At some point, we will come to that anyway.
Yeah, we homeschooled our children, and one of the ways I mean, I didn't know about polymathy at that point in time, but one of the things that we did a lot of was our vacations we would do as adventures, explorations, discovery things, and we would
Exactly.
go places to find out, and in some years we would assign to our children for them to read certain books because we're going to go be in that area where that story had taken place. So the idea of connecting history with actually a place and the people in that place, was all part of this. As I now see, is part of what it means to be a polymath. Is all these things get connected together. I so so what if I know people who I would consider polymaths who have very little formal education. And they went through high school, but even in high school, that kind of that type of educational system didn't work for them. And so, but they know how to do all kinds of things. They have a knowledge of the history of their community. They have this breadth of understanding of things and I find them very, very interesting to talk to. And some of them have become good friends. Um, and I was wondering what you think about people who have sort of lived outside of the traditional educational system and who succeed because they have that same kind of polymathic tendency.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is what exactly I also always try to mm, propagate that why we so much disrespect self-learners. Because I mean, Leonardo da Vinci is the person who is like the icon of genius in the modern society, which he is actually not. But I mean, because if you study polymathy, you will discover lots of Leonardo da Vinci's. There have been across cultures and times, ages, amazing polymaths, mind-blowing figures. Like for me, Leonardo is of course a very special figure, but not the best of the best, as he is all the time featured, you know, everywhere, like the geniuses of all times. No, and but never mind. He was self-educated. He was unschooled. He was not even homeschooled. He was completely unschooled. He was totally left to himself. Uh, I don't know who taught him some kind of reading, a little bit of learning. And you know what? I have also a chapter on him, of course, in my book. I couldn't miss that. And what I say is that yes, you know, he he became who he became because of his absolutely freestyle education. He's he was fantastic self-learner, self-directed learner. But you know what happened? And he grew older and around the age of 40, when he started working more on his technical innovations, his engineering constructions and all that, he admitted himself that he lacks um, academic knowledge. And
Hmm.
not only he himself, because he was asking around his friend in Florence to help him out with maths, with whatever was there. And the scientists, the researchers, and other researchers, they say that actually when you go through his notes, you can clearly see that he was struggling, absolutely stupidly struggling with lack of basic academic knowledge, like in physics or in something that if
Yeah.
he could have done much, much more. But he lacked that. He had the lack of knowledge. And so with the time he started collecting books. He like after 40 he started he then after some time his library counted like 200 books, which was very a lot for that time actually. So he realized that one needs academic knowledge later, at least at some point of life you need that. So
Yes.
even Leonardo, because Leonardo, he realized that. So for me, it's always, but on the other side, if he attended school, if he had attended school, what would have happened? You know, then probably there would have been no Leonardo, because he would have been framed, you know, and formatted according to the system.
He would have a
That's it.
reference point for either agreement or disagreement. And I think that's important. I think that's what I see in polymaths is that they have the ability to say, I disagree with that, even though that may be the conventional way of looking at things. I disagree with that. Or they say, well, I see something else here than what they're saying,
Hmm.
that sort of thing.
Hmm.
What is it that you are right now um, captivated by in terms of your own study? What is it that you're reading now and that is of real interest to you? That is kind of a representation of you as a polymath.
Um, as a polymath or representation of my
Just
desire to keep on learning,
yeah.
or just my focus in life, or what?
I'm just thinking of to this evening. If you sit down and you're going to go read, you're going to study something tonight. Let's say, what is it that's of interest to you right now?
Okay, good question. Because obviously, in a very polymathic style, you see, I dedicated at least 5 years of my life to the research on polymathy. And as typical for a polymath, and this is one should know, polymaths, they tend to go very deep in one subject. It can happen across all life, or it can be like you dedicate like 5 years, 7 years to one topic, different. But for me, it was like I dedicated to polymathy this time of my life, at least 5 years, very, very intensely. Absolutely, it was my major focus. But as common for a polymathic person, at one point you feel like it's kind of you have learned enough. I mean, of course, one can do so much with this topic still, but for me, I decided that even though I love it and it's amazing, but now I discovered a new love. So and now I'm my new field, which fascinates me like absolutely beyond words, is actually future studies.
Future study.
Yeah,
Good.
future, the futurism and the I love the point. It's my main focus. My interest is not in foresight, but in using futures as an instrument to give people hope. Because what I see that we have such a difficult time now that anything can happen tomorrow, you know. People are so lost, and also AI is here, and you know, so I mean, climate, wars, everything, and it's unfortunately looks like it's gonna to increase. So people, what inspires me in future studies, they highlight the point that it's futures studies because there are multiple futures, multiple versions of what can happen depending on our agency. And I love this point. And for me, it's also kind of the application of polymathy because for me there is this three and there is the entity of three things. There is complexity, then polymathy and futures. This is actually also the model I have designing now a polymathic leadership training, which is based on that philosophy that you first study complexity, you understand the complexity a little bit. I mean, you can't understand it, but understand the principles. Then you go into polymathy because you have to see, because polymathy kind of serves complexity. It it helps you to see more, to understand more. And then you go into futures because then you apply it. Then you apply these two fields into the real world, how you actually make an impact on your life and the community and the greater collective and the whole world. So it's kind of more practical aspect of applying this knowledge of multidimensional life. So
This
it's all connected.
sounds really fascinating. I'm interested in all of those areas um, because I think that, I mean, my perception is that we're at a transition point in human history that um, is has been waiting to take place for 4 or 5 millennia. I think we're at that kind of, because we're at a point in time where I think you've said it already, where everything is known, everything that can be known is accessible to us. There's and if you're willing to study, if you will, and it's everything is right here, um, right available to us in the palm of our hand. And this is a totally different world than any generation prior has ever experienced. So
Right.
what is it that we do with that as human beings?
Exactly.
And I don't think
Yeah.
that we actually know. But I think and this goes back to my earlier question about times of change, and which brings the polymath cohort to prominence, because what we are doing, in all humility, is that we're seeing the broad scope of knowledge, the broad scope of history, this broad scope of all these things that have taken place for 2,000 or 3,000 years, all kind of coalescing into a moment of time that will end, and a rebirth will come. You mentioned a kind of a new renaissance. You mentioned that earlier. Well, kind of a new renaissance will emerge from this. And I was reading or hearing someone speak the other day about whether the future is going to be dark, because knowledge or things would be destroyed in such a way. And I felt like, no, it'll be the opposite, because the things that we have been used to now we know will not work. And so what we must create, the new mechanisms, the new ways of being, the new ways of working together, the new ways of living together, the new ways of thinking. And I think it's open, and I think it's so open that whatever we think is the past is really in the past, and that the future is going to be something quite different, and that we do not know what that looks like at this point. And how exciting it is to be living at this point in time, even as hard it as it is going to be to go through this period of time, to get to the other side of that. It's going to be pretty fascinating time to be alive.
Right, but we need a lot of thought leaders. We need a lot of people. I mean, we have lots of people, and many people are conscious, but they need to do even more conscious work to work with the masses. Because what happens that we need really to be aware of all that. What you've said right now, it's that, but this should be brought into the consciousness, because there is a lot of fatalism. People they see these doomsday scenarios, and they don't see their own agency. They don't see that it depends on their own acting, but this should be really popularized. These ideas, they should be clearly messaged to everyone, that every, like, where you are, what are you doing today, will be exactly why in 1 year you will have the result that you will have. So this understanding is not clear to people. And I think if that's why I'm so fascinated by this topic, that it's actually, now I feel that it's time to start working on our collective future with full consciousness, that people become aware of their own actions, that everyday actions of each person will make an impact. And if we even come together for doing something bigger, then it will have even more impact. So this is where also I try also to, like in Vienna, I started this Viennese salon of the for the future, in the tradition of the salons of enlightenment, where like I gather polymathic people, mostly polymaths somehow. Naturally, they feel attracted to this sort of ideas, that we educate ourselves. I mean, we invite interesting speakers and then discuss in this salon way how you discuss things, not debating in this American style, but relaxed and exchanging views. And so this is one of the ways how you do it. You gather people and you talk about things and on different levels. It can be done on different levels, but this is like, for instance, one of my ways, and I do it now for the German speaking like salon. I have one, and I have a now I'm opening a Russian speaking salon where also Russians and Ukrainians will be doing that together. So
It's
kind of,
fantastic.
yeah, this is
Uh,
the work which can be done, and my focus is the future. I want to show the people that there is future. There are many futures, and they can actually do something about it. So I'm really
well,
passionate about that.
I'll make an offer to you that if you find
Yeah.
yourself coming to America anytime in the future, you're welcome to come to my home and
Okay.
do a Viennese salon, because I bought this home because it has a space that allows for those kinds of social environments. And my first social event will come in late March after I kind of put order to this house. But the whole point is to have people come and they have the opportunity to talk. And maybe they'll hear a presentation or maybe not, but they have that opportunity. And it's the same thing as that happened in Vienna. It happened in Paris. It happened
Yeah.
all over in the intellectual centers of Europe. There were places where
Yes.
people gathered for this kind of
Yes.
conversation. And I'm creating this in my home, and it feels like it feels like um, I'm living in Vienna in the during the years. But those pre First World War years and the post World War First World years, where people would gather and they would talk about things,
Yes.
and
It's
it's
very, it's comfortable
yeah, it's great.
and inspiring.
Well, you're doing great work, and it's important work, and I wish you well. I look forward to seeing what you create in this new area of study that you're doing. Um, I think it's going to be valuable. It's
Thank you.
I think it really will be. I look forward to reading your book, and I look forward to having you back on here at some point when you feel like there's something for us to talk about that carries this set of ideas forward. You're always welcome to be here on the Eddie Network podcast.
Oh, thank you so much. It's a pleasure. And yes, please do such things also in your place. And yeah, you can name it Viennese Salon in your in your place. Why not? I mean, it will
Yeah,
have
oh, yeah.
a flair because I mean there is no copyright for that. It's just a tradition, and yeah, yeah.
That's right.
This, I just realized that is my learning also from last years. That just I know we have to finish sometime. I'm just saying it's an important for people who feel that they can be that they have some knowledge to share and there's some inspiration. That it's our duty to the world to shape it by ideas, because actually what I learned also in the light of all propaganda stuff, that unfortunately uh, it's not money that rules the world, even if people believe that. It's not money, and it's not love, unfortunately. I mean, unfortunately not money, I meant actually for love, because it's still not enough. It's not that big enough that it can rule the world, but what rules the world are ideas.
Hmm.
And actually, people are ready to die for ideas. They're
Yeah.
not ready to die for money or for love. No, they're dying for ideas. I mean,
Yes.
this is crazy. But that means that if people who have ideas, who have enlightened ideas, who have really revolutionary, beautiful, humanistic ideas, these people should really take the leading position, and they should really start doing some work in that. I mean, they've been always doing that, but probably today we can do it on the next level. Exactly what you were saying, because we have this huge knowledge behind. We have all the humanities experience. We have all everything, yeah. So we can just probably, I don't know, gather it, reflect on that, and mold it into something new. But this idea, work with ideas should be done, and this is like, for me, was one of the greatest realizations in the last couple of years.
Well, that's great. I, I thank you for the work you've done and for the impact that you're going to have. And I wish you well in your continued work. And I appreciate you coming on here. And we'll definitely have you come back, and we'll talk about some more of this. And maybe we'll have you come back and talk about the future. You know, as you figure some of that out. But that's would be great. So thank you.
Yes,
Thank you very much.
great. Thank you, Ed. It was a great pleasure to talk to you.
Well, I feel the same way. And thank you all for watching and listening. And if you would sign up and leave us a check mark, but even more, leave a comment and let us know what you think, because what we're doing here is important and it's valuable. And uh, every time you leave us a comment, you encourage us to continue doing this. And if you have a question, even more so, I thank you for that. So thank you again, and thank you all again. And we'll see you next time here on the Eddy Network podcast. Bye-bye.
Okay, great. Thank you. Bye.